Hey, hi, my name is Chris. Every day I'm doing a vlog and I'm doing it for 1,000 days, guys. Yes, 1,000 days. So if you're not subscribed, a subscribe will be absolutely awesome. Thank you so much in advance. And like I say, every day I talk about something uniquely different. And today, well, domestic arguments. Yeah, domestic arguments. In my formal career as a police officer, I used to go to an awful lot of domestic violence logs. And very often it would just be, most of the time, just argument onlys, and there was very little in it a lot of the time. Sometimes it was compounded by drink or drugs, and very often I think arguments are fueled by sometimes the smallest things. And it's the smallest things, I think, that can trigger things for us. And having an argument with somebody isn't always the worst thing in the world. Sometimes it's the making up too. It's the saying I'm sorry. It's the saying that look, I care enough about you because I, for whatever reason, felt a certain way. When you have an argument with somebody, you really are, I guess, doing a couple of things there, aren't you? You're defending your position, your ground. You are arguing with them because you're in opposition because of what they're saying, how they're presenting, and it's trying to get your point across. Now, in doing that, sometimes people elevate their volume. They speak loudly, they start shouting and screaming. And I find when you do get to that level, that's probably where you need to be sort of stopping and possibly walking away. It's okay to have an argument with somebody. It's okay to have a disagreement with them. But in a domestic setting, there's that extra caveat, isn't there, where you're supposed to love that person. And part of all of that means that you respect them, that you just would do everything for them to protect them. And unfortunately, an awful lot of police work is domestic violence. And when you accept that, when you know that domestic arguments can escalate to violence, that's probably, it can be a real eye-opener. If you've had a period of your life where growing up you've been used to that kind of thing, I think the chances are you're more likely, shall we say, to have that in your personal life maybe. Or it could well be that you've had domestic violence as a child growing up, and you then, because you've had that, don't really seek a relationship, or you seek not to ever have that domestic discourse in your life. As a kid growing up, I remember feeling, I would call it bad atmospheres. I didn't always really understand what a domestic argument was. My mum and dad, I would say, first and foremost, were very loving, very kind people. And they, most of the time, never had a crossword in front of us. They just wouldn't do it. And I really commend them for that. I don't know if it was because times were different back then, where we didn't have cell phones, the internet, YouTube, or all the other stuff that runs with it. I don't know if it's because of that. But what I do know is that they tried their very level best for us as kids not ever to see anything. And whilst there probably were the odd moment where things kind of slipped out and things sort of happened, and when they did, because they were such a rarity, I guess you really kind of noticed it. So when you look at domestic violence, there's a ton of reasons why people have arguments in their relationships. It could be because the other person's possibly got an addiction, or they're just selfish, or they're just wanting to act outside of the confines of that relationship, and that can cause problems. And how you overcome those problems, well, that's very much an individual case, an individual case-by-case scenario. I do genuinely think, though, when you experience violence in a relationship, as soon as somebody touches you, that's it, that's got to be over. You can't allow ever to happen the prospect of that again. I think if somebody starts hurting you, then that's a place where you can't go to again, because your safety is paramount. Your peace of mind, your ability to live a life without somebody hurting you is so important. And this person that's hurting you is supposed to love you. So how can you allow them to do that? People do. People do come back from that. But it's a very long, windy road, I think, and not always guaranteed for you to see the final stages, so that you don't ever have the risk or prospect of that action happening to you again. It takes a special person, I think, to do that. Most people, and I had myself in this, would walk away. If somebody laid hands on me, I probably wouldn't want to have that or the prospect of that in my life, because that's not how I live my life. That's not what I want in my life. What I want is this. I want peace. I want happiness. I want joy. I want to feel loved. I want to feel cared. I want to feel just all the things that are necessary for a fruitful relationship. And I want to show my love, my care, my warmth to somebody that I love and care about. And that's so important in a domestic setting. Now, going back to the fundamental issue of arguing in a relationship, I think it's wrong to actually share that argument with your family unless it's got to the point of where you're enlisting help for them to assist you, to help you, so that you can maybe navigate away from that very, very difficult and challenging domestic setting. And getting help, moving away from that, I think is really important. Now, everybody has a different threshold, haven't they? Everybody has a different place where they find domestic arguments acceptable. Some people will argue every day, and they would say that's fine in their relationship. I think if you've got that all the time, then you've got very little peace, and not having peace in your life, well, that's just not on the cards for me. I love peace. I love my time. I respect the person that I'm with. I just want to give them love and, like I say, kindness. But if we're arguing every day, if there is an argument every single day, I think that can be draining. It can take away from you. It's not an easy subject to talk about, is it? Domestic arguments. It's not. Because each and every one of us has been in a relationship and we've had an argument with somebody. They've had an argument with us. Sometimes you've genuinely felt the victim from it because you didn't warrant their response, or you didn't warrant their attack, their verbal tirade. And you as an adult don't necessarily want to stay there and listen to it. And yet some couples seem to thrive on that. There's no right or wrong, is there, in a domestic setting? But the wrong, I think, is when you become physical, when there is that threat of or fear of violence. Then that's obviously something that cannot be acceptable. But it's just an argument where you just share or exchange different opposing views. It's okay to have that in a relationship. You can do it without screaming your head off. You can exchange different views about the same subject with the person you love and care about without resorting to violence or being verbally abusive. It depends on your level of care and contact and approach that you have for that person. But I think first and foremost, you need to say to yourself, do I love this person? Do I love them enough? Sometimes it's worth saying to yourself, do I love them enough to let them win this argument? Because it doesn't mean that much compared to the peace and happiness that I love and enjoy from my relationship. Now, if you have that that kind of relationship where you do have that mutual beneficial respect and you do both care about each other, well, I think the chances of discourse is minimized. You're probably two very well educated people who care about each other and are able to articulate your communication to make yourself feel heard and that the other person feel heard. And sometimes in arguments as well, isn't it? We just want to be heard. I've always found it's really hard to be around somebody and argue with them if they're being nothing but kind back. If they agree with you, even when you think deep down they actually don't. And some might say that's a bit of game playing there. They're not being true to themselves. But I think I would rather want to communicate in a way which is more conducive to a happy outcome than risk a threat of further aggression and abuse. And that's something I think that's worth holding in the front of your mind. Now, can you do that during a very heated argument? Well, that is the trick, isn't it? That's the trick. It's having that skill to be able to say, actually, do you know what? I love this person far more than winning this argument. So I think it's necessary sometimes to, if you're in a relationship, to understand, try and put yourself in the other person's shoes and see how they feel. And like I say, there's a multitude of reasons why people have domestic arguments, but just something worth thinking about. And I thought I'd just touch on that subject because communication is so important in a relationship. When things are going great, you know, I think sometimes it takes more effort to just make things great. I always say in life, you don't always remember what people say, but you remember how they make you feel. There have been times when I've argued with people, not necessarily in a domestic situation, where I haven't remembered every single word they've said. But boy, do I feel a certain way because they've made me feel a certain way. So I think it's important to understand that definition. Anyway, on this beautiful, beautiful evening here in Plymouth, it's so lovely here. So wherever you are in the world, I just want to say I really appreciate you stopping by. Thank you so much. My name is Chris. If you could subscribe, oh, there it is on the screen there. If you could subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. I'll be back again tomorrow with something uniquely different. And all that's left to say is I'll leave you with this, and I'll see you guys tomorrow as part of my 1000 day vlogging series. Bye now.